Okay, welcome everyone. First, going to open up Visual Studio Code, and we're going to go to a directory where we do the next week, and we're going to create. I'll create a new directory. I'll call it week week underscore 8, and we're going to have three files in this directory over time. So I've created it. Then in Visual Studio Code, I will go and open that folder, and I'll go to where that folder is that I just created. Okay. So it's in where I keep the every week's files, and there is week 8 right here. So there it is. That's the folder I created. And then I'll just open it. I'll select the folder, and I'm there. And from here, inside this File Explorer, I'll click on that plus, and I'll type in week underscore 8.py. Okay? Like we always do. And here, we'll just start off the same way we always do. I'll say name. Okay. And, okay, the course. What are we doing here? We're doing Python. And then the course name. Oop, wrong. Course. And it's Python. And then say, just make something else up. Some made up numbers. And then the section number, say. Okay? And then the assignment for today, for this assignment, ASSIGNMENT would be week 8. Okay? And the date, okay, I think it's March 1,000,000th or 89th, and March 89th, and it's 2378, and that's not the real date. And I'm going to put in an extra value here called points, and if you don't have this, then it's minus 5 points. So must have. And I'm going to add another concept here with speed. And again, this will also be worth 5 points. Okay? With that said, what we're going to do in this chapter is learn about functions. Okay? So functions are named blocks of code. Okay? That do something. G-H-I-N-G. Okay? And def is how we define a function. Functions are important to learn because they form methods. They form methods inside classes. Okay, so we're learning about classes starting off through methods, which are functions. But here, there are two parts to this study. And that's going to be taken care of in this set of programs, okay? The first one is what are functions? And how are they called? How are they called? Second one is how caps on HOW. Let me take that space out of there. So how are the functions imported into a program? And I guess what I'm trying to say is, how are functions imported into a program? Specifically, we're talking about parameter passing, okay, or building attributes. All right, so first off, I'm going to just print out, get used to doing this, quote, backslash, quote, backslash n, just simple functions. So we'll print that out when we run it. But before that, I'm going to go back, and we've done this before. I'm going to print out a quote, backslash 033C, and I'm going to withhold the return by putting in an end and just an empty string. Okay, so when I run this, it will clear the screen and then run that first print statement. So as I run the code, you run the code. Okay, because as we are building functions, we want to make sure that everything's running. Okay, now we've done this trick before, but I'm going to select this guy, right mouse button click, and go down to refactor. And I'm going to extract a method from this line of code, and I'm going to call it clearit, C-L-E-A-R-I-T, and just put in the name of that method, and then I enter it. So this may not work for you right off, but if it does, then you've started learning how to refactor. Sometimes it doesn't always print out the call. So again, this does the same thing. It clears the screen and runs that print statement that introduces functions. Okay. So before a function, we have a space. And I'm going to use DEF to create a function called say hello. And I'm going to pass it to person. So I'm passing it a value, and then I'll build a block. Now here I'm going to put in 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes to put in a doc type, which explains it, PROVIDE, provided string. It explains what this function does. Okay? Then I'm going to do the function, print. Here I'm going to use a format string, hello. Yeah, it's kind of hello, and then a name here to person. Okay? So, and I'll close that variable. So basically, I'm giving this function something to print out. Okay? And I'll put an exclamation mark there. Why not? Really simple. Now, to call this function, I would go say hello, which is the function name, and then give it a string. So Mike, M-I-K-E. And so this, let me just put in this comment, this is the function call. I won't always explain that, but now we're just learning what functions are. And this part is, this Mike part is a string, and it's called an argument. Okay, up here in line 22 for me, this guy, this to person, is a parameter. And we're going to learn and see examples of how we change both of these for different amounts and types of data. But if I run this, it says, hello, Mike, right here for me. And again, you would run this to make sure this works. Okay, that you've added that. Now, I'm going to just, as an example, I'm going to take this and copy it, just below here. And I'm going to put it up here in front of the function call of definition here, and then run it. And see, I get an error here. It says, right here, this is where it happened on line 22. And if I go to line 22, there's line 22. And it says, this is a function call, yet say hello is not defined. It's defined after it's defined, right? Down here I can use it, but here it isn't. So it's one of the reasons why function calls go at the start, or before you have to define them before you actually call them. So I'll take it out and I'll verify that this runs fine. And it does, okay? So that's really the introduction to a function. There is one more thing to think about functions, and that is return values. And I'll just go over this real quick. So I'm going to define a function, FORMAT, format values, let's say, or format names. And I'm going to give it a first name variable, a parameter, and a last name. That's an L, not a 1. Okay, and go into a block and define the block. Now, again, I'm going to put in a doc type, and it says format names. Okay, it's something really simple that explains what the function does. I'm going to define a variable string output, and I'll say output equals format string with the two variables, the first name, okay, and a space and the last name. Okay, so I'm formatting a string and I'm putting it into output. Now I'm going to return the value output, and I'm going to apply a method to that variable string, title, and put a title on it. So if I ran this program right now, nothing would really happen because nothing really changed except I defined another function. Okay, so I have to call this function, and it will return the first name and the last name as a string. So I'll print out that value. So I'll go print, print out, and then I'll make a call, format names, and I'll give it, say, AVA and max, and let's just print it. Let's run this again. Sure enough, it says Ava Max right here. It prints it out. This is where I printed it out before, but now here this prints it out what I gave. I could print it out again, run this again. I'll select it, Control C to copy that line. Well, I got into the interpreter, and down here in the interpreter I have to put quit, Q-U-I-T, and Q-U-I-T, try tab. No, quit, run that. Okay, so I cleared it out. If I get stuck into the interpreter, none of my commands will work because it's just doing one comment and another. Anyways, I'm going to Control V and paste this, and I'll put something else. Say DUA, D-U-A, and here last name L-I-P-A, Lipa. So I run this again and again. It prints it out and puts those names together. So I have a function that's defined to format these two parameters and put them together in a format string, and then return that after the values are titled. Okay, and so when I print it, when I run it, it does just that. And notice it puts a title on, it capitalizes both words. Okay, so we've introduced functions. We started this big long file that we have, and I'll see you in the next video.